Welcome into Beat the Bookie. I'm your host, Nick Zelaya. I know, might be a little scary sight. You saw me back in January. I lost a lot of money on this show, but I've had a full year to train, to study, to practice, and now is the time to dominate. As you can see, I got the watch right here. I got the full black fit on. The bankroll has indeed been rolling through, and I'd like to help you now win some money. First, let's see how my good friend Spencer Pierce did last week. We're planning on going golfing, but before the football starts, it looks like I might need to rent the cart. Not terrible, 4-6. I'm not a fan of the negatives once again for a fourth straight week on Beat the Bookie, but that's all right. Overall, we have some improvement to make. We've lost $137.16. There's Spencer in fifth place. John Dales and Jacob Morris, well, they're carrying the crew. They're the only ones in the positives. Cam, my good Ackerman friend, a good dear roommate, he's on the bottom with $90. He lost $90 somehow. I don't know how. But we begin this week with this week's big games. And we start in Athens, Georgia. Number 1 Tennessee and number 3 Georgia. Stetson Bennett and the Bulldogs having a great story for the last 2 years. But this Tennessee Volunteers team, something special. I'll put $10 on Tennessee plus 8.5. Everyone talks about the offense led by Hendon Hooker, but this Vols defense is legit. Last week, projected top 5 NFL pick Will Levis in Kentucky went into Knoxville and did absolutely nothing. And I'm not expecting that type of D against Georgia, but get a stop here and there. Do your thing on offense, which is averaging a wild 553 yards per game. Lots of Hendon Hooker, Jalen Wyatt, Jalen Wright, Jabari Small. The Vols easily cover, and I also think they win, but we'll just take the points for now. Big game number 2, staying in the SEC. Number 6 Alabama in Death Valley against number 10 LSU. I don't care that they just got spanked by Ole Miss. Just a few weeks ago, Tennessee beat the Tigers by 30. Give me $10 on Bama to cover 13.5. It hasn't been pretty for the Tide the first 2 months of the year, but you better expect Nick Saban and company. They'll turn it up another notch, make a run at another SEC title and playoff appearance. The Tigers may keep it close to start, but Bryce Young and the rest of this offense will figure out a way to pull away in the second half. Jaden Daniels has been great, but the O-line gives up the second most sacks in the SEC. Bama got some big boys. Won't be a fun game for the purple and yellow. Into our third and final big game, sticking with the Tiger theme, number 4 Clemson and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Since August, I've been on the fence about Clemson, to be honest. And now I still am, really, but they do have enough to go into South Bend and win. $10 on Clemson to cover 3.5. A healthy Syracuse team probably beats Notre Dame. Sorry, Irish fans, you beat a BYU team that now stinks, UNC, who's a bit overrated, to be honest. And the losses, I won't get into them. Notre Dame relies way too much on its running game, and that won't work against the 7th best D-line in the country, filled with future NFL starters. Clemson is fully rested, and they still have more to prove. The Tigers will be 9-0 by Sunday morning. And now let's see how our producers do. Ethan and Braden. Love the picture there. You got Mrs. Puff in my head. But anyways, there's my picks on the left side. On the other side, you know, they're fading me a little bit. Georgia minus 8.5. We agree on Bama, but they think Notre Dame will keep it close, plus 3.5 on there. It's been tight all semesters between the talent and the producers. We'll try to pull away a bit this week. Let's get to my own picks now. We'll start with 21 Wake Forest and number 22 NC State. There's no way the Demon Deacs play the way they did against Louisville. 8 turnovers in one singular half. You have to play better, and I think they will. I'll throw $10 on Wake Forest to cover 3.5. The Wolfpack are not the same team without Devin Leary. Losing to Syracuse and just squeezing by Virginia Tech. Their defense has been good, but I think Sam Hartman has a bounce-back game after a rough couple weeks. They're looking for that elusive 6th win to become bowl eligible, and I think they get it this weekend. Moving to the Big 12, number 24 Texas and number 13 Kansas State. How much more disrespect can the Wildcats get? They lose at TCU and then come out and shut out Oklahoma State 48-0. The same Cowboys team Texas just lost to a couple weeks ago before their bye week. Kansas State is underdogs. I'll put $10 on them to cover on their own home field. Adrian Martinez is a great story. Deuce Vaughn is one of the best backs in the nation. They have the best running game in the entire conference. This one will be a good one for sure for the Wildcats. To the American now, number 25 UCF in Memphis. Regardless if it's John Reese Plumlee or Mikey Keene under center, the Knights will win big. $10 on UCF minus 3.5. They love to score and score. They lead the conference, averaging 36 points per game and 510 yards per game. On the other side, Memphis, well, they've lost 3 straight games, all against American opponents. I think Memphis figures it out eventually and possibly reaches that 6-win mark, but it won't happen this week. Trust me on that. One more pick for me. Florida in College Station to face Texas A&M. I got $10 on Florida plus 3.5. The Aggies haven't hit 400 yards against an FBS team all year. Well, that was until last week against Ole Miss. They gave up 480 and still found a way to lose. The defense is atrocious, especially the run D, giving up the 2nd most yards in the SEC. That goes well with Florida's running game, who is 4-1 when rushing for over 200 yards. They are 6 Trevor Etienne rushing yards away from having 3 400-yard rushers on the season. I think the Gators cover, and they could seriously pull off a big win as well. For my dog of the week, we go to number 7 TCU hosting Texas Tech. And with the first playoff rankings, TCU is looking just outside the top 6. From what we've seen in the past, it's only a matter of time until a team like TCU eventually crumbles to the ground. And that time comes in week 10. Texas Tech is the best team in the Big 12 at letting it just fly in the air with their quarterback. And if there's one flaw on this Horned Frogs team, it's their secondary. It will be a shootout of a game, but if Texas Tech can keep up, which I think they will, force TCU to make 1 or 2 mistakes on offense, the Red Raiders throw up the W. $5 on Texas Tech at plus 260. And now to my lock of the week. How bad is Northwestern football? Well, I talked to one of my sources, Benjamin Spector, who some of you may know. He said, in all caps, bad. Ohio State will cover minus 38.5. With the SEC as good as it is this year, people just brush aside the Buckeyes. This team is so good. I think C.J. Stroud is the Heisman winner up to this point in the season, and I think it'll just be another day in the office for Ryan Day and company. Well, let's finish off with a parlay. Go big or go home, they say. This will save the semester and bring us back into the positives. Kentucky and Missouri over 40.5 points. Missouri's offense isn't great, but seeing Kentucky give up 44 points to Tennessee, the Tigers can find the end zone a couple times. And for the Wildcats, Will Levis has a month to prove he is a top QB in this year's draft class. He needs to put on a show, and I think he'll help Kentucky score north of 30 points. We've also got Baylor plus 3.5 against Oklahoma. Neither team has lived up to expectations at the start of the year. But the Bears, they come with some momentum, scoring over 35 points in their last 3 games. Richard Reese has been a beast this year, and I expect him to keep that up today. Miami will beat Florida State at home. Mario Cristobal is hopeful Tyler Van Dyke will be back for the Canes, and they are desperate for a win. With time ticking on a potential bowl game, this is the type of night game environment where Miami can come out hot and pull off the upset over the Seminoles. And finally, James Madison to cover 7.5 against Louisville. The Deuce, they love to score points. 38 points per game this year, and they have the #1 run defense in the country. So expect a little hangover from the Cards on this one from their previous win last week. $15 to win over $300. We're going back in the green. Let's take a look at all my picks from today. Again, I have Tennessee plus 8.5. That's the biggest game. Maybe not of the week, but the entire college football season. Another one there, Clemson at Notre Dame. I think Clemson will have a huge game regardless of who the quarterback is. Minus 3.5 coming off the bye. And then taking a look at some of my other picks, UCF minus 3.5 at Memphis. And then there's my parlay. Kentucky, Missouri in the over, Baylor plus 3.5, Miami to win straight up against Florida State, and then James Madison, who currently sits at 5 wins right now. If they win one more game, they're bowl eligible for the first time ever as an FBS team. But that'll do it for Beat the Bookie. Thanks to our producer team of Braden Reed and Ethan Frank. Let's see if I can crack 100 on the links. I'll do my best. And one more thing. You will win some and you will lose some. But just remember, the only outcome is income. Enjoy the football. We'll see you next week.